Today's speaker comes from us, not from the North Pole, but from Virginia Beach itself, although I could draw some comparisons if I chose to. I would like to propose that our speaker today should be called the Santa Claus of the fellowship. This speaker is such a giving man to this church. The music he provides. Obviously, I'm talking to this fine gentleman sitting here, Mr. Bruce Shelton, our senior pastor, serving on our pastoral council, serving as our president of the board of directors, directing our music that we thoroughly enjoy here every Sunday. This man does so much for this church. And Sarah's shirt tells it all. Believe, believe, believe. This is a man who believes in the spirit of Christmas, who believes in the spirit of giving. So today, he's going to be talking about Christmas, and he's going to be talking about the mystics of Christmas. I'm looking forward to hearing that. So, Bruce Shelton.
Well, good morning. All right. Let me get organized here. As is my tradition here, I'd ask that you help me with this talk. If we can all just become quiet for a few moments, and let's just feel God's presence in silence. And let's affirm that God will work through all of us so that I can say the words that will be the most help to you this morning. Amen. Okay, well, today is December the 15th, 10 days prior to Christmas Day, and I don't know about you, but I can just feel the energy in the air. There's something about December. It starts the last week in November with Thanksgiving. Somehow, every year between Thanksgiving and January 1st, there's like a magic sort of in the air energy. And it expresses itself in many different ways. My belief is that during this particular time period, we call it the holiday season, the veil that separates us from the source of our being, of who we are, thins. And we're able to penetrate the veil more easily because it's just the energy is just pouring through us. It's Christ energy. Now, the energy expresses itself in different ways. For example, we go around the city and there's all these lights everywhere, you know. I don't know about you, but I was up last night putting lights up in front of my house, and we have these beautiful, inside our homes, we have these beautiful Christmas trees. Now, this doesn't happen in July. It doesn't happen in February, any other time of the month. But you go all over the city, and there's lights everywhere, right? Now, what accounts for that? It's more than just a cultural phenomenon, you know, where we're all group pressure. It's an energy, you see, this, and so light is an expression of God. Jesus says, "You are the light of the world. Let your light so shine that men may see your good works and glorify your Father which art in heaven." And the great invocation every Sunday we sing, "From the point of light within the mind of God." So this light is very symbolic of God, of the expression of God energy. Then we have, during this month, we've got, everybody wants to give Christmas presents to everybody else. Isn't that interesting? We have this urge, this need. It's interesting that doesn't have to have anything to do with religion. It's a universal. It's this universal desire to give. Now, what is gift giving? Unconditional gift giving is love made manifest. What is love? Love is God, okay? So this urge that we have to help others is really God within us. You see, I want to give you a nice gift to tell you how much I love you, you know? Isn't that interesting? And I used to be a parole officer, and I had these guys would get out of prison, say in November, and they'd come to my office, and they'd say, "Man, I've been away for a few years. I haven't got a job yet. and I have no money, and I have these 3 kids, and I've been gone, and this is the first Christmas I'm back, and I don't have any money to buy presents. And he said it with pain in his face, you know. It's like we want to give gifts so badly that it hurts not to give gifts, you know, if we don't have the money. So the urge is so powerful. Then lastly, this particular month, we've got this guy that, as we're told, is up there in the air and a sled being pulled by these 8 tiny reindeer. And this fella goes around the whole year. He's up in the North Pole creating little presents for kids, all the kids in the world. And then magically, this man appears in the home of every child in America and around the world who believes in him, right, and gives gifts, right? Now, isn't it, to me, there's a remarkable similarity between Santa Claus and Jesus the Christ, you see? What does Santa Claus do? He does nothing but good. Santa Claus can be omnipresent, you see. Jesus can have 1 million people praying to him for help, and he can answer 1 million prayers at once. This happens in a way that we can't understand. But and the best word for it is omnipresent. This fellow, Santa Claus, to me, is a secular archetypal creation of the Christ Spirit, you see. And it's beautiful. He's beautiful because he doesn't have to have anything to do with religion. But he goes around doing nothing but good. So it's very interesting to me that all this happens just during this particular month, starting the end of Thanksgiving. And so now everything builds up to what? Midnight on December the 24th, Christmas Eve, and throughout the next day, Christmas Day. It's all a buildup, and it's all about this man we call Jesus. And so the question is, who is Jesus? Hey, we have a little reindeer over here. Who is Jesus? Now, Jesus is the most easily, we can easily say that he's the most influential person in the history of the world, okay? Now, of course, you expect a preacher on Sunday morning at a Christmas service to say that, right? But let me back it up with some facts. If you look at the most famous men in history, like for example, Caesar Augustus, Napoleon, Charlemagne, Genghis Khan, and even our own George Washington, none of these men are honored to the same extent as is Jesus. For example, in any city in the Western world, and in other parts of the world as well, there are multiple buildings built for one purpose, like this home right here, to promulgate the teachings of truth, the teachings of God, and the teachings of Jesus the Christ, okay? Now, none of these, if you take all these other men put together, there's nothing like that happening with anyone else in history. And all these buildings, by the way, are financed by free will offerings. It's not like we have taxes where the government is going to put you in jail if you don't pay your taxes, you know. It's all just given from the heart. It's all financially supported. And I Googled, I asked, how many churches are there in Hampton Roads? And the first time I've ever asked Google a question, it didn't have an answer. Because there's so many, I think it was too complicated even for AI to figure it out, right? But they did say an interesting thing. They said there's 14 mega churches in Hampton Roads. Now, to be a mega church means you have to have at least 2,000 people every week attending, right? It's called a big church, right? There's one church in Norfolk, I never had heard of it. I think it's an African-American church. We have 6,000 people every Sunday going. So there's 14 of these. Now, once again, no other person in history has had this type of an influence, you see, upon our culture, and upon the culture, not just our culture, but around the world. Then we have talks. Today there are tens of thousands of people like me giving talks around the world about what? About Jesus. All about seeking to understand his teachings and to spread his teachings and to give hope. The same teachings are given by everybody, but it's everybody does it differently, right? And so once again, this is very unique that this happens. So Jesus, I'll make my point once again, Jesus is the most influential person that's affected humankind in history. Tens of millions of people over the years have received hope and inspiration and help just by knowing Jesus, having this experience with Jesus. Now the next question is, why was he born when he was, okay? What was special about that particular period of time? Well, the scholars believe he was born around 7 BC, 6 or 7 BC, okay? They know it was not 0 BC because King Herod, which is historical fact, died in 4 BC, and Jesus was alive while King Herod was here. So it had to be before 4 BC, and they estimate it was around 6 or 7 BC. And so he came in at that time, and the reason was, at that particular time, there was one emperor and one law governing the whole Western world. The Western world was defined as all those countries around the Mediterranean basin, okay, which Rome had conquered. Now, having one we hear all these bad things about the Romans, but there was some real good things too about Roman rule. It meant there was peace, there was law and order. That meant that the pirates, for example, were put out of business. So there was that enabled commerce, that enabled roads to be built. The Romans wanted to build these roads so they could move their armies more quickly from point A to point B, but it also opened up commerce. And this opened up the spreading, it made it possible for the spreading of new ideas, for new ideas to be spread more easily around the empire. Is this making sense? So isn't that interesting? So that's why, Jesus came at that particular point in time. Now, he was born to the Virgin Mary. Who was Mary? Mary was an individual whose consciousness was so pure that there was nothing left in her but pure love, pure unconditional love. Mary consciousness is what you and I need to reach, that point where there's nothing in us, you see, but unconditional love. It's in this consciousness that we are able to have spiritual union with God, whom Jesus said was the Father, and the Christ child is born. Our awareness of the Christ child is born within us, okay? It all requires Mary consciousness, pure love. So anytime we're thinking thoughts, we're saying words, we're acting out behaviors in which we're expressing love, that's Mary consciousness. Anytime we find ourselves criticizing somebody else, putting them down, being angry at somebody else, that's exactly the opposite, you see, of Mary consciousness. And that's where free will comes in. That's why we're here, is to understand that and to really consciously work on letting go of fear, letting go of negativity of every type. And and eventually, see, we're going to all achieve this state of consciousness where the Christ is fully born within us. The Christ is always there, but our awareness, you see, is our awareness of who we are, and we've forgotten who we are. And so our spiritual journey is all about letting go of fear and filling our hearts with love. So Jesus' birth symbolizes that the incarnation of God in men and in women, okay? That mystical union, mystical incarnation of God within you and me. That's what Christmas is all about. That's why this talk today is so important, why everything we do this month is so important, because that's what your life is about. It's finding out, it's awakening to who you are, right? My life and your, that's why we're here. That's why we're here. And so Christmas has to do with reminding us of who we are. The primary teaching of Jesus was that of love and humility, okay? We understand love pretty well, but humility is a little bit more. Humility means we empty our heads of every negative thought and feeling, okay, so that we're totally purified, and there's nothing left within us. It means our ego has broken down, and we're able to break free of our ego and to become aware of who we are. So that's what true humility is all about. And it was a primary teaching of Jesus. This is why he would wash the feet of his disciples, and he was he was a servant. It's all about being a servant to others rather than trying to be controlling others and being a master. It's letting God work through us. Jesus taught, before Jesus, the teachings were about justice and a God of grim mercy, okay? When Jesus came, he taught a God of love and compassion. This teaching was implanted in the human collective consciousness, and they will never be uprooted, okay? This is his great gift to us. It's like Jesus came 2,000 years ago, and it's like a doctor giving us a medicine that begins working on our body. So over the past 2,000 years, this medicine from God called pure love has been working on our consciousness. And as bad as things may seem sometimes today, it's much better today than it was 2,000 years ago. Little by little, we evolve, individually and collectively. Now, Jesus has actually two names, doesn't he? Jesus the Christ. Jesus represents the Son of Man. The Christ represents the part of us and the part of Jesus that was the Son of God, okay? Interestingly, in the Bible, in the New Testament, Jesus is referred to as the Son of Man 81 times. You see, he wanted to emphasize that, hey guys, I'm one of you. I'm your elder brother. But I've done it, and I know I've found out who I am, and I'm here to help you to find out who you are. So he wanted to emphasize that he's a human being who broke free. And then we have the Christ, which is actually a title. Okay, Jesus was a family name, but the word Christ is actually a title, and it refers to the Son. It refers to his divinity, and that's said much less frequently in the New Testament. Most of the times when the Son of God is used, it's said by somebody else, like someone says, this man who just stopped this storm is got to be the Son of God, the Messiah, And only a few times did Jesus himself say he was the Son of God. And but this is the divinity, see, that's within you and I, So now, why did Jesus always refer to God as the Father? Surely God is the mother as well, right? Why did he call God the Father? Well, I was listening to Eckhart Tolle the other day, and he gave me the best explanation of that of anyone I've ever heard. He said that Jesus, seeking to find a word to name the unnameable, right? Because that which we call God is beyond the understanding of our rational mind. We can't really understand the fullness of who this being is, but we can use words to at least point us in the right direction. So trying to find a word that would kind of best describe this being, he used the word Father. And he used the word Father, not mother. He did not include mother because he was in a patriarchal society. Most of the world has been extremely patriarchal for centuries, for thousands of years. And so if he talked about God being the mother, the culture wouldn't have accepted it. So he referred to God as being the Father. But this is not just any father. Later on, Jesus tells a story about if your son was drowning in a lake, which of you fathers would do anything, including giving your own life, to jump in the lake to save the life of your son? Now, if you'll do that for your own son, how much, and you being imperfect, Jesus is saying, how much more would God, the Father who is perfect, do for you? So the Father Jesus is referring to is perfection, right? It's perfect love, For what? For you and me, you know? It's what's kind of neat. Now, they went to Luke 2, chapter 2, which to me is the most beautiful chapter in the entire Bible. It tells the story of the birth of Jesus. We heard a reading this morning about the shepherds. It starts off, it says, Caesar Augustus ordered that everyone go to the ancestral town of their birth to register. And it says for a tax, but actually it was for a census. It was a mistranslation in the New King James Version to say all the world to be taxed. It was actually to be a census. The emperor wanted to know, he's got all these, hundreds of thousands of people in all these different countries that have been conquered, and he wanted to know who's out there, what do they do, and how much money do they make, you see? And so it was indirectly for the taxes. But so they all went to the home of their birth, their ancestral birth, and the ancestral home for Joseph was Bethlehem, which is the home of David. And Bethlehem is translated as house of bread, okay, which is interesting. See, all these teachings in the Bible have a lot of symbology. And so Bethlehem is translated house of bread. And it's not just bread for our bodies; it's bread for our souls. Okay, and so that's where you and I go to symbolically to Bethlehem, to where the Christ child is born, and he was born not in a palace, right, or not in the son of a rich priest, but he was born in a stable. A stable, for the Son of God, the Messiah. What's that all about? Well, the stable represents our state of consciousness when we're basically broken down. Our ego is broken down. Maybe we're really sick and we find ourselves on our hands and knees. God, please help me to get better. Please help me to get over this illness, or please help my father to get over this illness, whatever it might be. And everything I've done with my intellect, with my ego, hasn't worked. And now I'm broken down. So this represents the stable consciousness, okay? It's when it goes back to that word humility. It's when our ego is kind of gone and it's in a state of humility that the Christ is born. And then that's when our minds are open to receive the Christ message. Now, the next event here in Luke, we read about the shepherds in the hills watching their flock by night. We had a beautiful reading this morning on that. I like the way Emmett Fox describes these shepherds. And the question is, why would the first announcement made to humankind be made to these humble shepherds up there in the hills, rather than, for example, to the priest, the high priest, who had a lot more power and could have really spread the word, or to King Herod and to his royal family? Why did they appear to these shepherds, And I like the way Emmett Fox has a little quotation here. It says, the shepherds had the starry host above, and the hills, and the wind, and the ever-unfolding miracle of nature all around them. In other words, they were close to God. And they had time to think and meditate and gain spiritual understanding. So it's to these individuals, to you and I, when we're feeling God's presence, when we spend time in meditation and prayer, this is when the angels appear before us and inform us as to what's happening. Now, there's such a beautiful passage here. I think some of this was read this morning, but let me repeat this. This is from Luke. It says, and the angel of the Lord came upon them, and the glory of the Lord shone round about them, and they were sore afraid. And the angel said unto them, fear not, for behold, I bring you good tidings of great joy, which shall be to all people. For unto you is born this day in the city of David a Savior, which is Christ the Lord. And suddenly there was with the angels a multitude of the heavenly hosts praising God and saying, Glory to God in the highest, and on earth peace, goodwill toward men. So you can imagine being the angels and witnessing this. And of course, their hearts were just blown open, with excitement. And they know this area. This is their territory. They know all the caves, and they know exactly what cave to go to, which would be appropriate place for a family to be taken to. So that's when they go and they arrive at the manger scene. Symbolically, traditionally in the manger scene, we always see an ox, a donkey, and a lamb. And there's actually a symbology behind that. I looked at, there was different interpretations of what these three parts meant, but the one that appealed to me the most says the donkey represents our human intellect, which can be very stubborn at times. The ox represents our physical body and senses, and the lamb is the spiritual side of who we are. So the Christ is born, and the three parts of who we are, body, mind, and soul, are brought together, you see, are realigned. And then we come to the wise men, okay? And for that, we have to shift back to Matthew, book of Matthew. The wise men are, Matthew tells us about the wise men that saw this star in the east. And they were wise because they spent a great deal of time in prayer, in spiritual practices, and they were open, you see. These, unlike the shepherds, these were very learned men. They were probably scholars. Now, the scholars in those days and the science of those days was astrology. So in the clear desert skies, every night the stars were just ablaze. The skies were ablaze with the stars, and so our ancient forebears, they spent a lot of time studying these stars, and they realized at some point that there was a correlation between the movements of certain planetary bodies and what was happening in our personal lives and collectively, and they. In the Jewish tradition, Pisces was a zodiacal sign for Israel. Jupiter was the royal star governing the tribe of Judah, and Saturn was the protector of Israel. Now, the Bible is full of allusions to the 12 signs of the zodiac. For example, in the book of Judges, the 12 tribes of Israel were arranged in a camp according to the 12 signs of the zodiac, and their banners depicted the signs. Isn't that interesting? So you see references to the stars and to the zodiac all throughout the Bible. And so it's not surprising that these wise men from the east were deeply interested in astrology. So they saw this star and they followed this star. Now, the interesting thing is that there's a strong belief, and this is even supported by modern astronomy, modern science, that there was not one star, but actually two, okay? And this was first postulated in the year 1603 by a German astronomer named Johannes Kepler. And Johannes Kepler observed that Saturn and Jupiter were so close together that they appeared like one bright star, you see. And just on a hunch, he calculated back mathematically as to when the last time this conjunction, they call it a triple conjunction in astrology, when the last time this triple conjunction occurred, and it was in the year 7 BC, which is believed to be the year Jesus was born. And so the three kings come, and the three wise men, it doesn't actually say kings, three wise men come, and they give their gifts and lay them at the feet of Jesus. Gold, frankincense, and myrrh. We all heard about that. Now, gold, these also have different interpretations, which I found. But the one that appealed to me the most is it says gold is symbolic of Christ's deity, frankincense of his purity, and myrrh of his death, since myrrh was used in embalming. And so I'd like to close here by sharing with you a reading that we had. We used to do this Christmas play here on this time of year. There's a musical, an original musical, and called The Christmas Present, Christmas Story. And I wrote this at the end of it, and this was always read at the very end of it. I'd like to share this with you. It kind of summarizes everything I've been saying. And so it happened, the Spirit of God entered into flesh on this earth in a lowly stable in Bethlehem and was given the name Jesus. He lived his life, completed his work, and then he departed. Before he left, he reminded us that the secret to the mystery of life was to find the kingdom of heaven within each of our souls. He taught us that if we would only love God above all else, that we would then be filled with God's love and life, and thereby be truly reborn into the kingdom of his wondrous presence. The Christmas story symbolizes the birth of the Christ Spirit within each of our souls. When our souls are as pure and beautiful as was Mary's, the Spirit of God overshadows us, and we are impregnated with the Spirit of the Christ child. Providing our love and yearning for God remains pure and earnest, the child then grows within us, waxes strong, and eventually envelops every aspect of our being. The government of our lives is then upon his shoulders, and we call him Wonderful, Counselor, the Mighty God, the Everlasting Father, the Prince of Peace. We remember at last who we really are, where we have come from, and where we are going. Emmanuel, Emmanuel, how we love you and yearn for thy birth just now within each of our souls. Come, we are ready. Enter now into our beings and impregnate us with the Spirit of the Christ presence. Thank you.